was an odd calm in the air as we went riding off that day. We were a band of hired guns, troubleshooters. We never knew from one day to the next where we might be headed. But we knew one thing for certain. When you're hired to go into an unfamiliar place and do a job, you better scope it out first. Going to work at an unfamiliar shop is kind of like riding a horse blindfolded. You know you're going somewhere, but you're not sure where. First thing to do is to get the lay of the land. We talk to the locals or the head honcho to find out what the various hazards are. And before you get started, it's important to go through a safety briefing with someone who knows their way around and has some experience at the site. You don't last too long in this line of work unless you use all the right tools. Stock up on any special clothing or equipment you need, like hard hats, hearing protection, and safety goggles with side shields. Ask your guide about any hazardous materials or gases that might be around, or that might be introduced into the area. Get familiar with any breathing apparatus and so on that you need in the work area. Talk with your guide about any materials safety data sheets that pertain to the job. Find out how to avoid coming into contact with hazardous materials and what to do if you do come into contact. Just about any machinery is potentially dangerous, especially if it's new to you. Find out the hazards of the equipment you'll be working with or working around. For example, when working with moving or rotating machinery, make sure everyone is aware of pinch points or areas where injuries can occur. With some machinery, loose clothing or jewelry can become caught in the machine. That's even true of some typewriters. Troubleshooting is a high-stakes game, and if you want to play the game, you got to know the rules. If there's a safety handbook or list of safety information, everybody should show that they're familiar with the material before starting the job. Anybody new to an area should be made aware of activities that could endanger themselves or others. For example, everyone should be aware if there's a volatile atmosphere or any other reason that smoking is forbidden. You should know if sources of ignition are prohibited. Ask if there are designated smoking areas. Know where the fire extinguishers and first aid kits are. Know who to contact for help in the event of an emergency. In case an emergency occurs, you need to know all warning devices used in the shop and what they mean. You should be familiar with the caution signs commonly used and the interpretation of each. In any industrial locality, you need to be familiar with lockout and tagout procedures. Before you start doing any maintenance, make sure any equipment you'll be working on is locked out, de-energized, or depressurized. If you'll be working in a confined space, never enter without proper authorization. Make sure you comply with all OSHA regulations and local plant rules that pertain to the situation. Never operate equipment that you're not authorized to operate. You should only start after you've been authorized to do so. Be aware of how your work may pose hazards for others. If you create any hazards as part of the work you're doing, be certain to use proper warning devices and barricades. When you've been a hired gun as long as I have, you learn a lot of things. But the most important thing I've learned about working in unfamiliar places is to ask a lot of questions. After all, if you work safely, it protects everybody who works there. It's always better to ask 100 questions than to have a single accident. This is Claude Akins reminding you that safety is your job too.